Do you expect more attendance?
Yeah, our announced time is 6:30, sir. Now it's only
It is
6:28.
nearly 6:30.
Yeah, it's at time.
There is no necessity for introduction. Everybody is known.
Students' participation will be there. So naturally, we have to go through these formalities.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hello.
Shabbos.
Good evening, Vijay Chandra sir.
Good evening, sir. Good evening. Good evening.
Shall we start? Shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Good evening to everybody. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
I extend a very warm welcome to all honorable members of IAI Palakkad Local Center and all student members and all participants to this webinar organized in connection with World Engineering Day celebrations. You are all aware that March 4th is being observed as World Engineering Day for sustainable development as proclaimed by UNESCO. So today we have here with us Dr. Sri Mahadhavan Pillai, Director, Ahalya Group of Education Institutions and former Dean of University of Calicut, as our guest speaker to talk on the theme Build Back Wiser, Engineering the Future. So, in fact, we are lucky to have him here as our guest speaker. And Dr. Sri Mahadhavan Pillai needs no introduction as he is our own man. And he readily is willing to lend helping hand to our institution whenever needed. So I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Sri Mahadhavan Pillai for having agreed to give a talk on this theme. Actually, seeing this theme, especially the phrase "Build Back Wiser," it reminds me of a similar phrase "Build Back Better," which was coined first in Indonesia following 2004 tsunami disaster by World Bank Agency, and later in 2005, this Build Back Better was introduced in United Nations Economic and Social Council by formulating the Tsunami Recovery Protocol. And since then, this phrase, Build Back Better, got global attention. The underlying principle of Build Back Better is to understand disaster as a trigger or springboard to create more resilient infrastructure, more and more resilient societies and more resilient nations than before. So, Build Back Better approach integrates disaster mitigation measures, including restoration of infrastructure, revitalization of livelihoods, social systems, economy, and environment. In the same way, the phrase "Build Back Wiser," coined by UNESCO after COVID pandemic, means mending our economies and environmental at the same time. So, Build Back Wiser, engineering the future, emphasizes or focus on engineering solutions where there is a need to think holistically and go beyond the traditional drivers of engineering outcomes like normal performance, quality, cost, etc., and to amalgamate the other dimensions of sustainable development like social, economical, and environmental aspects. So, in nutshell, essentially, Build Back Wiser engineering the future is a proactive approach encompassing all aspects of engineering, social, economical, and environmental for the future engineering solutions to achieve sustainable development. So, with this brief introduction, let us hear more from our guest speaker on this speech. And I take this opportunity to wish one and all a very happy World Engineering Day. And now, once again, I welcome you all. And I request our Secretary, Dr. Pradeep, to introduce our guest speaker to the participant. Over to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Most respected great gurus, Dr. V.B. Panikar sir, Somashekar sir, all senior members of Institution of Engineers, our beloved guest speaker, Dr. P.R. Sri Mahadevan Pillai, Sri Vijay Chandra Nair, all other members present here, all participants present here. Dr. P.R. Sri Mahadevan Pillai needs no introduction among us because he is one among us, great orator, and readily agrees whenever we approach with with any problem to him. Similarly, I have approached when I was in, he was in NSS College of Engineering. I have approached him for several things with regard to this Institution of Engineers India Student Chapter and other advices. And he readily explains it without any hesitation, with very clear in his approach, with clarity in his clarification of everything. With all these things, let me introduce him to all the other members present here. Dr. P.R. Sri Mahadevan Pillai is now working as Director, Ahalya Group of Educational Institutions in India. His former Dean, Faculty of Engineering, University of Calicut, and former Dean, Laurie Becker International School of Habitat Studies of the Government of Kerala, and former Chairman, Institution of Engineers India, Palakkad Local Center, and was All India Committee member of the IEI. He rendered service as Chairman, Board of Studies of University of Calicut, member, Senate and Academic Council of Cochin University of Science and Technology, and member, CR Committee of APJ Abdul Kalam Technological University. He had been working as at the NSS College of Engineering from 1983 and retired as Professor of Civil Engineering in March 2018. He held the post of Head of the Department of Civil Engineering of NSS College of Engineering and served as Principal of 4 engineering colleges. He is an expert panel of member of AICT, NAC, NBA, and UGC. He did his BTech degree in Civil Engineering from University of Calicut, MTech degree in Structural Engineering from IIT Bombay, postgraduate diploma in Business Administration from Annamalai University, certificate in Sanskrit and National Sanskrit from the National Sanskrit Institute, and PhD in Civil Engineering from NIT Calicut. He has some other 10 books in different subjects and scores of technical papers in national and international journals and great articles as well as poems in periodicals. Some of his major contributions to Palakkad district include the engineering consultancy provided to the district Panchayat building, Deer Park at Walayar, Telescope Tower at Malambura, check dams construction in Bharatapuzha, Nelliyambadi Resorts, Sri Krishnapuram Government Engineering College, Palakkad Fort renovation, Kalpati Heritage Village, Sri Chakra Hotel, Ahalya Campus Development, Kairali Hotel, Fort Building, ITI Limited, Instrumentation Limited, Patch Spin, Record Mills, Premier Breweries, Malabar Cements, District Nirmadi Kendram, St. Gobain Industry, Palakkad Municipality, and IRTC Mundu. With this, I present before you our great orator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pradeep, for the very long introduction. Can you hear me properly, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
With to my great teachers, Manikar sir and Somasharan sir, let me begin the session. My dear fellow engineers, guests, and students, a very warm good evening to all of you. I was doubting whether I'll be late in reaching home to attend this session. Luckily, I could reach in time, so without any delay, I could join all of you. Now, let me start with the technical topic instead of going further away, because I know in the evening time, all of you are pressed to have the session finished at the earliest. And today being the World Engineering Day. World Engineering Day is on March 4th, and of course, we have Vishwesharayya's birthday as the Engineering Day in India. It is Indian Engineers Day. But this is the World Engineering Day, which started, the UNESCO started celebrating it from 2019. So 19, 20, 21, 22, this is the fourth World Engineering Day. Of course, every year there's a theme. This year also there's a theme. It is Build Back Wiser. Wiser is different from development-based building. Build Back Wiser is to take care of the nature. That is by wiser development. So I'll be discussing most about how, without hurting the nature, we can build. It is build back, not build and go ahead. It is build back wiser. That means going back to the nature, and especially it is more concerned with the engineers, because engineers are the people who build everything. Whether it is wiser or unwiser, both are there. So our topic today is how to build back wiser. So before that, I have to discuss some paraphernalia about the World Engineering Day, because the UNESCO specifies that these things should be discussed on this day. On the World Engineering, normally on the Indian Engineers Day, we discuss about Sir M. Vishwesharayya. Similarly, on the World Engineering Day, there are certain things which the engineers have to be aware of, and then we will proceed to the topic, and I will try to limit as much possible, because there's a restriction on things we can discuss. So let me start with my PPT so that in a nutshell I can express the things with the points shown on the screen. So those who are having the laptop can see it on the screen well, and those who are using the mobile can even expand your screen so that you can read things quite well. So let me start it now. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can see my screen fully. So this is the invitation, a part of the invitation I got from the Institution of Engineers, which specifies the topic, World Engineering for Sustainable Development. That is a general term which UNESCO has given for the World Engineering Day. World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development. It's a common term. So though it is called World Engineering Day in short, the full form of the term is World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development. And this year the topic is Build Back Wiser, Engineering the Future. Obviously, we have to have all development. I think some of the other members have got their microphone switched on. Please mute the microphone so that it doesn't interfere with my talk. All others, please mute the microphone. And at the time of discussion at the end of the session, you can switch it on if you feel like. So build back wiser. That is one part. Second part of the topic is engineering the future. You have to engineer the future, definitely. Yesterday, I was having a day before yesterday, I was addressing some students, and I told them, now there is a war going on between Russia and Ukraine. And maybe the only group which is going to be benefited out of the war is engineers, the engineering students, who will have better employment chance. So war is a negative thing. It is going to destroy, but to rebuild from destruction is the duty, the bounden duty of the engineers. So maybe the war is going to play havoc, but as a result of it, the engineering profession may have more employment opportunities. Throughout the world history, it has been like that. The wars have destroyed the world, but the engineers have rebuilt it. So bringing back from the graveyard is the duty of the engineers. So March 4th every year, as per the United Nations inspiration or inciting, we are celebrating the World Engineering Day right from 2019. It's a fixed date, March 4th. March 4th commemorates the date on the date on which a UN report came. So this is an international day coordinated across the globe, and this day is an opportunity for the engineers to engage with government and industry to address the developmental issues which the world faces. And definitely all developmental issues have to be discussed by the engineers for rebuilding, whereas the economic and financial aspects have to be discussed by somebody else also. And developing the strategic framework for this development paradigms is the assigned duty of the engineers. And the World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development was proclaimed by the UNESCO in 2019 at its 40th meeting, that every year March we are going to celebrate the World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development. And this is a day which brings hope of sustainability to the nature as a whole, because we have got umpteen issues of development which are linked to the survival of the human beings. You all know that the human beings are one of the latecomers on this earth. The present fossil fuel study and the present study on paleontology reveals that the human beings are less than 2 lakhs years old. The developed the human beings. Earlier we had primitive version like Australopithecus, Neanderthal man, Java man, etc. But the present day, the civilized Homo sapien on this earth is less than 2 lakhs years old, whereas the earth is supposed to be around 450 crores of years old. So there is no comparison. The earth is 450 years old. The man is only 2 months old. So it is such a small baby on earth. But we are the only species which manipulate the earth, which deform the earth, which destroy the earth. All other species depend on the earth. But man make the earth depend on us by spoiling it. And definitely repercussions may be there, which I'm going to discuss after 1 or 2 slides. I'll tell you what are the repercussions. So this day, every year we'll have a theme. And coincidentally, last year also, this day for the Institution of Engineers, I only addressed. I don't know whether Dr. Pradeep remembers it. When this year I was called, I just got astonished because I am being called for the same day this year also. Maybe answer came from Dr. Pradeep saying that for sustainability, we would like to listen to you. Doesn't matter, because I have made around 40-50 PPT slides groups for sustainable engineering, which is a paper for BTech, and I have sent it to all the engineering colleges in Kerala. So in sustainability, moreover, I have always had a concern on sustainability, on environmental matters. And luckily enough, to most of the industries in Palakkad, Calicut and Kannur districts, I could provide the consultancy service for pollution control. Most of the industries in Palakkad have availed my service for pollution control. I think a list of it, Dr. Pradeep read it. I don't think there is no major industry in Palakkad which hasn't got my service, either paid or unpaid, for pollution control programs. Because I like to be associated with that. That's the reason. So sustainability is something which I am always concerned about. And of course, we have got a bounded liability. Now I am going to offtake a program on waste management for Palakkad district. Definitely I'll be getting in touch with the Institution of Engineers, where each panchayat, we would like to have an action group. We'll take care of waste management, because only by people's participation such things can happen. At the government level, there is a limit for doing such things, because waste is a wealth in the unwanted place. So if people can identify that waste is a wealth, their attitude will change. That we have to make. So engineering for sustainable development and delivering on the sustainable development goals is the basis of the second UNESCO report. That is engineering for the sustainable development and delivering on the sustainable development goals. Sustainable development, first part you can easily understand, engineering for sustainable development. That is what the engineers have to do for maintaining sustainable development. The second part is what is called sustainable development goals, how to deliver for it. They are in short called SDG. SDG is a peculiar word which is being used as a catchword everywhere all the world. This period from 2015 to 2030, 15 years is the period of SDG, Sustainable Development Goal. The United Nations is focusing on 17 goals, which are the Sustainable Development Goals. I'll tell you what are those 17 goals. Those goals are called Sustainable Development Goals. Before that, in the year 2000, we had what is called Millennium Development Goal, because in 2000, the second millennia was over. So we started with a program called, the UN started with a program called Millennium Development Goals that started for 15 years. By the time that Millennium Development Goals period was over, it had a designated period of 15 years. You know that all the goals were not fully achieved, but still that program was over by 2015. That time we launched the next project, which is called the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 goals in it. Millennium Development Goals were 8, but most of them are overlapping. The MDG and the SDG, Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals are overlapping. If there are any students in this group, I think some students are there, they have to be very careful about this SDG, because this SDG is a question in any examination which they have to face hereafter. Because now, by next year, the second half of SDG is going to commence by 2023. So what the world could make up in this, especially with regard to the climate change control, with regard to the sustainable development of the world, with regards to the resource crunch, etc., we have to have an idea what has happened in these 7 years after the SDG. 2015 it started, now it is 2022. By this year end, almost 7 years or 15 years will be over. So Build Back Wiser is the motto for this year. Not only the motto for this year, it is more concerned with mechanical and civil engineers especially, because building things is mostly with them. Building things means mostly buildings and machines. All these things are a major chunk of the building part. I'm not saying that the others like IT engineers or electrical engineers or electronics engineers are there also building. But the more visibility is with the buildings by civil engineers and mechanical engineers, especially the domicile units, the industrial units, etc. For the others, that visibility part is less. So though they are building, they are also building, because any development is building doesn't mean it's a civil engineering structure. Building anything is only making it. So even building an electronic circuit or building a software, these are all part of the building work. So that is the word which is used here. It is not building the structures. It is Build Back Wiser means we have to develop things in a more wiser way without damaging the scope for the future. That I will come to when we discuss about the term. There are some messages given by the UN for this World Engineering Day 2022. These are the messages which the UN gives. One key message is that the world is changing and it will go on changing, and the technologies have an opportunity to go along with the changes. And the world is experiencing a shortage of engineers. This year, this point has been focused. And the point also says that the feminine gender, the women participation in engineering is very less. Maybe in Kerala, we have got an exemption. Because when I joined the engineering degree, in my college, only around 20 girls were there. Out of, at that time, the number of students were around 300 in the entire college. The entire college, only around 20 girl students were there. But now in my college, now, after retirement, I am working in Ahilya. There are 65 to 70% are girls. Exact number I am not remembering, but last time I checked, it was above 60. So around 65% are girl students. So Kerala is an exemption even in the world. Even in developed countries, the gender-wise, if you see, the women participation in engineering is less. So UN emphasized that the women or the feminine gender have to be more in the engineering sector. Then only the real development will happen. Because as per the purpose published by the UN, the real development to sustain the gender equality has to be established in engineering, and they say that we have to promote more women to come and join engineering. We accept in Kerala, it's a reality we require. And another thing is most of the qualified engineers have got a nature or a system of migrating to other countries. That is why most of the well-qualified engineers are migrating to Europe and the US. This is not advisable. That is why those countries remain developed and countries like India remain developing and the African countries remain underdeveloped. Take, for example, nowadays it is not true. Earlier, most of the expenses for teaching a student in the IITs used to be paid by the government. Now the fees in IITs are very high. And 90% of the IITians are going abroad. Even today, only 10% remain. That means the entire cost which has been spent on them is being benefited by, maybe we can say that most of the multinationals in US are having Indian heads. Most of the multinationals in US or UK, they're having the CEO or a CFO who is an Indian, mostly from IIT or IIM. That is true. But what India is getting out of it, I don't know. And one more thing is those who become CEOs and CFOs abroad, they are not committed to the cost of development of India at large. So this is a great loss. But nowadays, the fees in IIT and IIM is so high, even if they are living, we are not losing much. Earlier, till some years back, the taxpayers' money in India was used for the development of US and UK and such countries. It was a very pathetic situation. So hereafter, at least we have to make it. So the policymakers should consider the need of engineering for sustainable development. Sustainable development is not simple development. Sustainable development is that development which doesn't damage the present system or preserves the present system and go for development. That obviously the policymakers have to decide. That's a tragedy in countries like India, where the policymakers many times are illiterate or many times they are not learned people. So when they are not learned people, their vision will be very restricted. You take, for example, any organization where the topmost brass of the organization are uneducated people. So the scope of that organization will be base level business. They cannot go beyond. Many organizations in Kerala, you can see such a case where the top brass of the organization is not educated properly. So they will not have a wider vision. So people with wider vision, especially engineers, have to occupy the topmost chair in every organization. And compared to any other profession, engineers are the people who are fit to occupy such chair because the input knowledge, and there is a saying in the US that the most difficult degree in the world is an engineering degree from India. Because on an average, we study 50-55 purpose, whereas an engineering degree holder from the US studies only 30-35 purpose. So, based on that, even the examination system here is much more tougher. So, I feel that the engineers from India are competent enough to serve anywhere. That is why we have got a very low pass percentage, especially in Kerala. We do claim that our degree is very valid. So, naturally, if you take most of the countries, 99% of the countries, anybody who joins the engineering degree can pass out with a degree. Here it is not possible. Many people fail out. So, for any development, whether it is sustainable or unsustainable, the contribution of the engineers have to be well established, and that is why this day is focusing on it. And obviously, I have told that this is based on the second UNESCO engineering report, which says that engineers have to contribute more for the sustainable development. Sustainable development is targeting the overall development by 2030 of all the 17 elements which are discussed there. And of course, the second UNESCO report, which we are commemorating on the World Engineering Day, it is focusing on the SDGs. The SDGs are basically based on the second UNESCO report, which was submitted in the second decade of the 21st century. And now, what we have to do? I think some more people have unmuted. Please mute your microphones. There is sound disturbance. Those who are listening to me, please mute the microphones. Bindu, you can mute the microphones. Please mute it. Whoever microphones are on, please mute it. Okay. And, please mute the microphones. Right. So, Sustainable development means we have to deal with climate change, we have to deal with environmental issues, we have to deal with the development issues, and we have to focus on coming up with the goals, the 17 goals which we pursue. This is what we have to do right now. And we are starting the discussion with what we want actually. This is what is sustainable development. This is a world famous report, Brundtland report, which was submitted to the United Nations. Brundtland report defines sustainable development by this term. This is a term which any textbook on sustainable development will quote. It's the most important definition on sustainable development. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That's a very famous poem in Malayalam. ഇനി വരുന്ന തലമുറയ്ക്ക് ഇവിടെ വാസം സാധ്യമോ? I think you would have heard it. The generations which are yet to come, can they still survive here? That's the meaning of the poem. I hear that poem once in a while from the YouTube. It's available. Very interesting poem. You listen to that once because you will get convinced whether the coming generations can survive here. And as per the concept of sustainability, the world is more for the next generation than us, because we have survived here for so many years. The next generation is yet to come, and the world or the nature is more for them because they have to survive. So that concept is called sustainable development. Any development which we do here should not be compromising the ability of the future generations to survive. And see, this is one major crisis in sustainable development. What is a major crisis? Most of the environmental issues, climatic issues in the world are caused by population growth. This is a prediction which was done 20 years back. Even now it is almost same, not much different. The only thing is now the numbers have grown up. The numbers have grown up. This is showing the urban population, not exactly the total population. You know that in India, now the urban population has equaled the rural population. In 1947, when we got independence, the urban population was 20% and the rural population was 80%. In India, not Kerala. Kerala doesn't have urban-rural divide. Kerala is called a megalopolis, where the villages and cities and towns are all alike. So we are a unique model in the world. World over, it is called the megalopolis model, not a metropolis or a village model. Even our villages are having the most advanced facilities which the metropolitan cities all over the world are having. That way is Kerala development. So it's a peculiar development, leave it. But India, from the 20:80 ratio of urban is to rural population, now just become, last year I have seen it is 49:51. So this year definitely I think it will be 50-50. That means the city population will be 50% and the rural population will be 50%. That I hope is the present condition. So this shows the urban population, and the urban population in India is expected to overtake China by around 2070. But sometimes it may be advanced. Recently I came across one journal which says that this can happen sometime between 2040 and 2045. But that prediction was based on 2-year-old data. Now it may change because, some years back, China controlled the birth by saying that one family should have only one child. They had such a norm. The second child was not eligible for any government subsidies. But last year, they identified that there are no people available to join the army. The Chinese army is the biggest in the world. So they want the army to have more people in number. Chinese army is the number one in numbers. So they found that if there is only one person in one family, getting men for the army was quite difficult. And even if they are doing it forcibly, it was difficult. So they decided that now the families can have 2 children, just like India. India also is promoting 2 children policy. So I think now China population also will grow like Indian population. So it may go like a parallel or parallel curve. It may go like, it may not cross, I think, in the near future. Chinese, but area-wise, China is 2.5 that times of India. But population-wise, it's only 1.2 times that of India. That means China has got still more resources, still more land to take care of, whereas India doesn't have. So we are at the worst condition, not China. And now, talking about the global crisis, today morning I was listening to a radio talk when I traveled from my house to Ahilya campus. It's a 40-50 minutes journey. I always listen to radio. Today I was listening to the Manjeri radio, which was discussing about the global temperature crisis. And of course, this is what they were discussing. In the last century, the global temperature increased by 1 degree. But this century, these are the estimate by different agencies. You see here that so many names I have given: CCSSR, CCMA, CSIRO, GFDL, MPAM. These are different international agencies which calculate or which predict the global rise in temperature. And it is estimated that the global rise in temperature in this century will be 4 degrees compared to 1 degree last century. Last century means 20th century, it was 1 degree. 21st century, 21st century it is 1 degree. Now we are in the 22nd century, 21st only we are. So it's very mistake. In the 20th century, it was 1 degree. Now in the 21st century, it is going to be 4 degrees temperature rise. That means by the end of this century, the temperature at Palghat, so far the highest recorded temperature at Palghat is 42 degree. So it may reach somewhere between 46 to 47 degree. Just like the Gulf countries. Gulf countries means many of the Gulf countries, it is now going up to 5 degree, 50 degrees. So maybe after this century, it may go to 55 degree. So this can happen. This is the prediction. So any development has to take care of itself. And these are the problems which Alvin Toffler is defining will be the issues of the next generation to face. The next generation or you can say that the next 50 years. One generation is not even 50 years. Nowadays, a generation is roughly 15 to 20 years only, more than 20 years. So next 2 generations are going to face. And after that, whether the generations will survive, that is another question. So you see, these are the issues which we are going to have: energy, water, food, environment, poverty, terrorism and war, which we are witnessing as on date, disease, the COVID, education, democracy, population. These are the 10-point issues which the world and its population is going to face. Sometimes some of these may end the civilization itself. We cannot predict right now because we all expected that COVID is going to be fatal to the civilization. No. Now COVID, I think hereafter people are not going to be afraid of. The third, wave, nobody got afraid of. And if at all a 4th wave is coming, I think people will ignore it. This may happen. But something else, any of these things can become, except things like education, democracy, all other things are going to be fatal for the survival of the human generations. And these are the Millennium Development Goals, which I told was stressed from 2000 to 2015. Which are the goals? Eradicate poverty and hunger, achieve universal primary education, promote gender equality, reduce child mortality, improve maternal health, combat HIV and AIDS. That time AIDS was the most dreaded disease, not COVID. So in the period from 2000 to 2015, you know that AIDS became very popular in the late 90s. So in the Millennium Development Goals, we were focusing on HIV is a virus causing AIDS, and AIDS is a disease, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, and malaria also. But luckily, India is one country which became the combating country for malaria. You know that 85 to 90% of the medicine for malaria, chloroquine, is being produced in India. So India became one of the world's savior for malaria, and ensure environmental sustainability and develop a global partnership for development. These were the 8 goals which I told was the motto of the Millennium Development Goals. I think in none of these 8 goals we achieved in toto development. Many of the goals we couldn't achieve, but partially we achieved because you know that all the countries in the United Nations, 189 countries are signatories to the United Nations. We have got 190 plus countries. Truly speaking, there are 202. But UN recognized countries are only 193. Out of that, 189 countries are members of the UN. All those countries joined to achieve the Millennium Development Goals. But even then, these are all partially baked, I think, not fully baked. We couldn't achieve all these things. Then happens what is called the Sustainable Development Goals, which was formed on 25th September 2015 by the United Nations. And the period of the Sustainable Development Goal is from 2015 to 2030. So it is many times called Agenda 2030 because it's going to end by 2030. So in that agenda, these are the 17 things. Can you see it? These are the 17 sustainable development goals which the UN has declared. If it is difficult to read, I'll show one by one. The first one is no poverty. Poverty has got different definitions all over the world. In the US and Europe, poverty means if a person cannot have 1.25 US dollar per day income, not family, a person. 1.25 US dollar will be around rupees 100 per day right now. But India doesn't need that much. If a person cannot afford to have 1.25 dollars per day in the UN terms, he is below poverty line, BPL. In India, the calculation is different. In India, the standard which is defined by the FIO is if a person cannot have food equivalents to consume 2,300 kilocalories in a day. 2,300 kilocalories, one sumptuous square meal can give you that much. If you take two heavy meals, it may be more than 3,000, 3,500 kilocalories. For example, recently I have reduced my food intake because I had some surgery and I reduced my food intake. So I started calculating how much is the calories I'm taking. I found that even after that, my food intake is around 2,600 kilocalories. So you can calculate what is the food intake if you know the weight of the food you are consuming. There are standard things available on the internet. You can calculate how much it is. So that is the Indian calculation, but this is the US. So no poverty means people have to be above the poverty line. Second thing is zero hunger. Hunger and poverty are different because zero hunger means it's a question. So even if a country is not poor, people may still remain hungry because the logistics of distribution may be poor. So having the resources not enough, reaching it to the students. For example, in India we were having the public distribution system PDS. In Kerala we were having that PDS as a ration shop, local ration shop. So Kerala was one of the states in India where the PDS system was very effective. That is why Keralites never had real poverty after the 60s. In the 50s, we had poverty in Kerala. People were poor, but after the 60s, for the last 50 years or so, poverty is not felt by 99% of the Keralites because our PDS was quite good. So zero hunger is the second point. Third point is good health and well-being. Good health and well-being means the climate has to be good, the food has to be healthy, the water has to be healthy, the environment and the habitat have to be healthy. All these things together, and disease should be controlled. Okay, that is good health. And the fourth one, which we have to focus, is what is called the quality of education. You all know, most of you are either engineers or engineering students. You know how the quality of education, and by that way, a person improves his quality of education, his general awareness and his living conditions to improve. That is one of the derived advantages of education. And the fifth one is gender equality. That I told in the very beginning, having a gender equality is essential for the global development. But nowadays, of course, when I was a student, the girls' participation in things were much, much less. But nowadays, I'm having girls are taking more initiative. Today, I was having a discussion with some colleagues and I told them nowadays the girls are more aggressive than the boys. Maybe it's a positive signal, but only in Kerala, not elsewhere. If you go elsewhere, that is not seen. So gender equality is a requirement. Then clean water. Clean water, remember, only 40% of the world population have access to clean water. And 40% has, another 40% have scarcity of water. 20% do have water, but not good water. There is a concept of what is called potable water. What water is good for drinking? If anybody has got doubt, I have published a book by name Handbook of Environmental Engineering. The last 2 pages in that book is discussing what are the minimum requirement of potable water. What should be the chloride content? What should be the turbidity? What should be the color? What should be iodine content? What should be fluoride content? All these things are discussed there. So that water which is good for drinking purpose is called potable. Only 40% of the people in the world have access to potable water. 60% have no access, and out of them 40% have got scarcity of water. So this is a global issue. Then energy is another major thing. You know, out of the world population, the 1.3 billion people, 1.3 billion people means 130 crores of people. This is a 3-year-old data. 130 crores out of the 700 and plus crores that time. That means 1 in every 5 individuals in the world has no access to electricity. Maybe there also Kerala is an exemption. But India, it is true. India and Africa are the countries where access to electricity is still less compared to the European countries or American countries. So that is another issue which we have to face. And obviously, I hope that now India is becoming better in that. Now, India has got more than 1.2 lakhs megapower generation, and that may be sufficient to distribute to the Indian population. So somebody from the electricity board may be here. Kerala, I think there is no village now which is not electrified. If some odd houses are left out, that is only a casualty, not a regular thing. So Kerala again is better from that point of view. Though the industrial consumption of power is much less, Kerala has got a better domestic consumption of power. Then decent work and economic growth. This is difficult in most of the countries. Decent work can be done only if the environment is conducive. You should have freedom to work. So any reservation, any discrimination work is not acceptable. This is where I don't accept the system in India. In India, why the better hands are leaving India? Mostly because here there is discrimination and reservation for work. If we provide equal opportunity to everybody to work, the better hands may remain here. And also, if there is no discrimination in income earning, India is one of the countries where the more you earn, the more you have to give to government. Most of the developed countries, the more you earn, the less you have to pay the government. So you are persuaded to earn more. Or there are some countries like the UAE where the tax is fixed. Whether you make 1 lakh or 10 lakh, you have to pay the same. Here, this is a country where if you earn more, your tax will become 20%, then 30%, then cess on that. That is very few countries in the world are having that. That means we are not training our people to be entrepreneurs or money makers. We are making them to confine with what is there so that they don't go beyond their easy reach. That is one problem with our country. So decent work and economic growth can come only and there's a vision. There's a vision. I think in the years to come, people, the economists in the country, and if very good economists are leading the country, definitely this vision will be better. And I'm seeing some changes. I'm seeing some changes in the pattern now. People are becoming more understanding type and politicians are more educated. Maybe things will become. And the next one is industry, innovation and infrastructure. Now the government of India and our state government are spending a huge amount for making innovation in our academic institutions. I don't know whether it will work, but globally, we are very, very backward. The contribution in India to innovation is 0.2% of the country's GDP, whereas in US, it is 9 to 10% of the country's GDP. See, can we compare? That is why here the innovation is very less. Whether it is a private contribution or public contribution, the innovation has to have some contribution. Without that, people cannot innovate anything. Otherwise, people have to be like C.V. Raman, who can invent things without any investment. Such people are very rare in this country also. So next is what is called the reduced inequalities. Inequalities or discrimination has to be reduced. This is maximum in countries like African countries and Asian countries. Most of the European countries and American countries, the inequalities are very less. So reducing the inequalities, one of the 10th goal of sustainable development. Then the 11th goal is make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe and resilient. That means natural vanishing of the slums, natural vanishing of the nomads, natural vanishing of the downtrodden, natural vanishing of the marginalized. I don't know when it will happen, but there are countries like that where the downtrodden, the marginalized are almost nil. But a recent survey I've read where it says that 8% of the American population are not having their own house to stay. They're wanderers. And also it is being told that 12% of the UK citizens don't have a house to take rest even in the cold winter. See, so it's not a question with Kerala or India alone. Kerala is somewhat better. The housing stock in Kerala is 20% excess. Can you believe it? The number of houses in Kerala and the number of people, if you take, Kerala has got around 86 lakhs of houses where we need only around 70 lakhs of houses. 16 lakhs of houses are excess. Actually, they are closed and key taken by somebody else, mostly owned by NRIs. Okay, but we are an exemption. And the 12th one is ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. I told that the consumption is also very essential. Production itself is not sufficient. If the logistics of distribution is not properly working, consumption will be very backward. So the countries have to focus on that so that the food reaches the needy. And there's a paradox everywhere that the rich are getting more and more food and the poor are getting less and less food. But the rich cannot take more food because the rich will always have diet-related diseases like diabetes or some blood pressure or something like that. They cannot take food more, even if it is provided to them. But the poor who need the food are not getting it. So that is one aspect. Then another aspect is recycling of the unused things, waste recycling, etc., which are another requirement for reaching the sustainable development goals. Then taking urgent action for climatic change. After this, our IPCC, Inter-Parliamentary Consultative Committee on Climate Change, is very active. They were even given the Nobel Prize. Pachauri received the Nobel Prize for climate control activities, but I still don't know whether the rich countries are saying the poor countries are the reason for climate change, because climate change is caused by the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. The rich countries are saying that the poor countries are making it because rich countries have already made it, and now the poor countries have no other way other than to burn the fossil fuel. Rich countries have gone to some other things. But even today, if you take the statistics, 20% of the world countries pollute 80% of the atmosphere. And that too rich countries where the fossil fuel is more and more being burnt. But there's a move by most of the government to change from the fossil fuels to solar, fossil fuels to other forms of electricity, to atomic, etc. I don't know how successful it is going to be. Maybe in the course of discussion, we'll be able to discuss on that. And the 14th goal which we have to attain is conserve the sustainability. Sustainability not of the land, of the oceans. The oceans are heating up. We are getting tornado, we are getting untimely rain because the oceans are heating up. Last semester, I taught a subject called disaster management. So it took me 2 hours to explain to the students how the untimely rains are coming, that to cyclones, that to heavy storms, how it is coming. It is coming because the oceans are heating up. Why the oceans are heating up? Because the temperature all over the world is increasing. We are not knowing it. We may not be hotter here, but the Arabian Sea or the Bay of Bengal may be hot. That is what leads to the torrential rain by means of cyclone or by means of storms. So oceans are also getting heated up. Some of the oceans are getting dried up. All this are happening because the climate is changing and temperature is going up by unwanted carbonation of the atmosphere. Years back, the atmospheric carbon dioxide used to be around 300 ppm. Now it is around 333 ppm. That 10% increase in the carbon dioxide has changed the world atmosphere like anything in the recent 40 to 50 years, right from 1970. And protect and promote sustainability of the terrestrial ecosystems. It is actually a human duty to preserve. There is a very famous book by Vaikom Muhammad Bashir, Bhumiyude Avakashigal. He says that the insects which dwell on the earth for lakhs and lakhs of years have got more right on this planet than the Homo sapiens who came almost 2 lakhs years back. It is reality. We are spoiling it. So that is why the 15th agenda is to make the people aware that we have to conserve. And the 16th one is promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. That is not happening. You see the war is now going on. It's destroying many installations. So people are not inclusive. People are not ready to accept the others. Inclusive growth means it's a win-win situation where I accept you and you accept me. If that happens, there won't be any war. But right now we are breaching it, and you are seeing what is going on around the world. The rich become more egoistic, and the poor become more desperate. That happens everywhere. And the 17th goal is to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the partnership for sustainable development. That is, countries have to join together. Maybe in the UN Assembly, they join together, but outside they are yet to join together because, so many lobbying is happening. Countries have their own vested interests. India will have its own interests. Pakistan will have its own interests. So when it comes to some collective interest, maybe countries like Japan are contributing a lot to this collective interest. But even now Japan is thinking of raising their own army after a gap of around 75 years after the World War. They are thinking of now having army. What does it mean? They also want to stay aloof. They want to get separated from the other countries. Whereas so far they were not keeping an army. So this can happen. So these are all the purpose of celebrating the World Engineering Day. The purpose is that we should have a survival on this earth. I remember the poem by O.N.V. Kurup, ഇനിയും മരിക്കാത്ത ഭൂമി നിന്നാസന്ന മൃതിയിൽ നിനക്ക് ആത്മശാന്തി ശാന്തി. That means the earth has not died so far. So I wish you all the best, earth. That is what he says. So if the earth is not to die down, we have to have, especially the engineers. I stopped this discussion by reciting a story. When we were students, when I was in the college doing BTech, we went to invite Vailopalli to inaugurate our program. Then Vailopalli asked us, what are you doing? We said, we are engineering students. And luckily or unluckily, I told, I am a civil engineering student. Immediately he retorted, saying that I will not come to your college because you are the people who demolish the natural forest and construct cement concrete forest. I will not come to such an institution. And he didn't come. That's a reality. So my advice to everyone is build, grow, but build the least. Don't think that building vast is our requirement. No, building wiser is our requirement. So whenever you go for construction, I have one example with me. With that, I am closing this. Pradeep has mentioned that I was associated with the telescope tower at Malappuram. I was a consultant for that. So at that time, I think Usha Titus was the sub-collector. We together went to the site to see the site for constructing the telescope tower. I only gave the design, structural design for it. When we went there, I found that there are some 5-6 people there cutting the tree one by one. One tree has been already cut. Immediately I asked them, why you are cutting the trees? They said, so a site engineer was there. It's a government sponsored work. The site engineer was saying, sir, in the budget, in the estimate for the work, the first item is clearing the site. Clearing the site means what? Cutting all the trees. So around 20 to 30 trees were there. He wanted to cut it. That is the instruction he got from his higher authority. This is the foolishness. I said, stop. We are going to mark where the tower is going to come. If at all any tree is coming inside, you cut it. Only 2 trees had to be cut. That one tree which they have cut was outside it. So only 2 trees had to be cut for making that telescope tower. That tower is still on a rock at Malappuram Gardens. And the trees are around the telescope tower on the soil portion. This is a mistake we commit. We damage the earth. And I know that many of the civil engineers want to cut the trees purposefully. Why? Because if only the trees are cut and clearing is done, they can claim that bill. Second thing is, if the trees are cut, there will be an auctioning of the trees. That also is interest to engineers. So let us ourselves think wiser, so that we are not damaging the costly earth. This is what I have to tell all of you. And I'm very thankful to the Institution of Engineers, which I have been once chairman and secretary. I think 2 terms I was secretary and 1 time I was chairman of the center. And I'm happy that the present committee is working very actively. I'm also thankful that the National Council member is also present here. And to all of you, I express my sincere gratitude for attending this. And listening is not enough. Practicing is, if there are any students of mine present in this group, please keep in mind that this is your future and you are the people who have to practice it. So the engineers should not be the black gods in the civilization. We have to be the gold spot in the civilization. Thank you very much. Now it is time for discussion. If anybody, so I think I finished in time, around 50 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. C. Mahadevan Pillai. A very nice presentation. In fact, it gave a lot of insight to every aspects of sustainable development goals. So really very nice. We all enjoyed it. In the meantime, anybody is having any questions from their side can go ahead with the questions. Some few minutes we can spend on some discussions or question answers. So anybody wishes to ask anything regarding the sustainable goals or sustainable development or in general?
Sir, I have a small question. It is apart from what you have discussed. You were telling that the district authorities are going in association with you for this waste management. So this is a
Right.
great menace now. So
Right.
what is the methodology that they are planning to, and how they are going to implement it? Will it be helpful to us? Because every day when I go through this,
Obviously, I want the people to be trained on that. The best way to deal with waste is reduction at source. The waste is coming out of your home. The best way is to deal it at your home. So people have to be empowered for that. How to reduce the waste at source. So it is called waste reduction at source. Reduction at source. That is the first training to be given. And some waste cannot be reduced at source. The market waste, the commercial waste, the hospital waste. So there are scientific methods for doing it. So the people have to be trained on that. Okay. So this is what I propose to do. I think engineers in this group can also join that activity, where first we'll have a training on how to reduce the waste, how to recycle the waste. There are some standard methods which many of us are not concerned about actually. Some of us know many of these things, but we don't have much concern because the old concept in waste management is NIMBY. NIMBY means not in my backyard, but in your backyard. My waste I'll throw to your backyard, and you will throw your waste to somebody else's backyard. That concept in waste management is called NIMBY. Okay, so NIMBY should not happen. We have to reduce the waste in our own house, and only very essential waste has to be, say for example, biomedical waste we cannot handle. Plastic waste we cannot handle. So there has to be some agency to take care of this waste. Obviously, I'll be organizing a training program on waste management, some 2-3 days, starting from next Sunday. I'll post the details in our IEI Palghat group. Those who are interested can join it. And you know that myself and my wife have been doing a lot of pollution control works in Palakkad district and even outside. Most of the textile industries in Kannur district also, we were consultants to deal their liquid waste. In Palghat also, many industries have got waste management system. So industries have to do it perfectly, otherwise pollution control department will catch them. But I had an experience when one industry in Palakkad district, when we visited as Human Rights Commission entrusted me to inspect it. When I went there, everything was working perfectly. The next day morning, some locals called me, sir, can you come now? Now see what is the condition. Next day morning, I went there and I found that none of the pollution control equipments were working in the early morning. That area was fully with smoke and dust. You know what is the reason? The pollution control equipments will cost around 2 lakhs rupees per day to work. And their production is so many lakhs. Every day, I think crores rupees production is there. So even out of that, they don't want to spend 1 or 2 lakhs for the equipments to work, because the equipments need power. Most of the pollution control equipments, like whether electrostatic precipitator or drum type isolator or scrubber, whatever it is, it all needs a sort of electric power to be with it. They don't want to spend it. This is happening. So many of the industries know it, but local people do the thing because of lack of awareness. That is where we have to help. I still remember I got a Netherlands government funding way back in 90s to study about the Palakkad municipality waste management system. So I conducted a study and submitted to the state government. Then the municipal people asked me whether you can help in implementing that project at Palakkad municipality. I said, okay, I can help it because my part already the Norwegian government has taken care of. So I can give all that free to you. But when it came to the municipal council, so much politics came, and the chairperson at that time told me with tears, it's very difficult. We are unable to associate because they see that you are also connected to some political party. I said, I offered you free only, but leave it. Then IRTC was entrusted with that work, and my report I gave to IRTC. They only did that work there. So that is what I'm saying. Somebody has to be there to take care of things. So if trained people are, we are the people to do it, engineers. We ourselves should analyze and find that we are the people to do it, not the public. Engineers have to make the public aware, whether it is plastic pollution or whether it is solid waste pollution or whether it is effluent pollution. We have to be, we are the people who can train them.
Hello, sir. I see some of the household drains are open to public drain. Is it correct?
Right.
household drains open to public drains?
As per the National Building Code, it's a crime.
I
How
see.
come it goes there? Actually, in household waste, there are two parts. One is called the sewage and one is called the sullage. Sewage means that which comes out of the closets. Sullage means that which comes out of water outlets like a wash basin or bathroom, not the toilet. So sullage can be filtered and let out to open drain, sullage, but not the sewage. But in many places, the sewage and sullage will mix up, and both of them come out of the drain. Even in the capital city, I have seen it. And Trivandrum is the only city in Kerala where centralized sewerage is there. I am having two houses at a place called Palkulangara, +4 Trivandrum. It is in the heart of city. That house, there is no septic tank. It is connected to the central sewer, and that's the only place where in Kerala where sewerage system is there. And many times the sewers break because of lack of maintenance. It's pretty old. That sewerage is more than 100 years old. That sewerage breaks and it mixes up with even the drinking water supply. Laterally, people will identify it. It has happened many times. So, in households, sometimes people find it easier. Leach pit, say for example, leach pit. Leach pit is something which is to be given after the septic tank. But in many houses, I have seen there is only leach pit, no septic tank. And leach pit, definitely, the water from the leach pit is having so much microbes. And our Dr. Nambiar from Government Engineering College, Thrissur, has established that these microbes can travel 90 meters in the soil. That means if there is any leach pit 90 meters, within the distance of 90 meters from your house, there is a leach pit, maybe your neighbors or next door neighbors, that microbes can reach your well very easily. That is why Kerala State Pollution Control Board tested the water samples all over Kerala, and they found that there is no water in Kerala without E. coli, Escherichia coli. Escherichia coli comes from the human excreta. There is no water in Kerala which is not having Escherichia coli. And I had an experience when some of the social activists came and requested me to test the water of Guruvayur Devasan temple. I tested it and I declared the result at the press club there. And it became a big news in the media next day because the E. coli level was so high, and that is used for the Nivedyam in the temple. So now they have control because all the lodges, nearby lodges, were letting out their leachate water to the temple ponds. Now there's a control. Even now, I don't know. Recently, I have not checked. After checking that and declaring it, some people told me to be very careful. Don't come to Guruvayur hereafter. That can happen. So, even in Temple Pond, if this is happening, what about the other places? Very dangerous situation. Anyway, that has nothing to do with our general topic on sustainability, only because the questions came, I have told this.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
What about the
can hear
condition
you,
of
sir.
our roads? To all this technology, we are responsible. How are we developing, or is it are we on the right path of development? The roads are miserable. We spend
Yes, sir, it is
crores.
miserable.
Why don't
think
we
the only road in
develop
Kerala-
technology suitable for the country, for the site?
The only
The
road in
technology
Kerala which has
is
withstood
required.
the test of time is that Palakkad Patambi Road, Shornur Road. That highway, it withstood the test for 15 or plus years. I think it was constructed in 2007 or so. Around 15 years, it is remaining without much damage because it was constructed by Padival with Malaysian technology, and the chief of that company had to suicide because the Kerala government didn't pay it. So technology is available. Even right now, technology is available because, Kerala has got a peculiar condition where the upward pore pressure is coming on the ground. Whenever there is rain, the upward pore pressure is coming. So the tar which is laid on the surface of the road will shatter. That is why we need rubberized or latex filled or rubberized tar for surfacing. That is available. Technology is there. Only thing is we have to spend a bit more and have an assured guarantee for the payment. But even on national highway, where that guarantee is given, if Padival can construct a road with that technology which has withstood 15 years very clearly, why the national highways are breaking within 2 years? Only two answers. Either some corrupt practice, or they are not using the technology correctly. There is technology available. It's not a mistake of the engineering. It's a mistake of the engineers. I think you got the point. It's not a mistake of the engineering. It's a mistake of the engineers.
But they have to take the blame.
Yes. Why they should take the blame? Because if they are having a straight vertebra like E. Sridharan, they need not take the blame. I still remember when the Congress government was at center, a central minister, Konkan Railway was going on. In this case, I know very personally. The Konkan Railway construction was going on. At that time, a central minister who is very powerful from Karnataka said that the route has to be realigned so that some of his properties will get better exposure. He wanted to sell that properties for constructing railway station, etc. at higher rate. So immediately, Sri Sridharan was called to the Indira Gandhi was leading at that time. He was called and asked his explanation. And what he told, this route which I have taken is the correct route. And if you want to divert it for some vested interest, then relieve me and do it. That courage the engineer should have. Then the things will become better.
Should develop a ship backbone.
Yes, that is what is required, sir.
The honesty and integrity is the main factor in question.
Only thing is, if somebody is having such a vertebra backbone, they have to face so many vigilance inquiries and so many inquiries. It can naturally happen. But if they are keeping the backbone, these things will not be a factor. Nobody can hurt us because the legal system in India, even now, we can rely upon. All are not corrupt.
So we have to rebuild the backbone of engineering.
Yes, that is true.
We maintained the road towards the end of March to the end of the financial year. And
Right.
After the first set of rains, it gets damaged. The life of a maintained road is only about 2 to 3 months. Then it's okay.
Right. So I put the blame on civil engineers. And of course,
Who are we?
now many of my, because many of my students have now retired as chief engineers. I used to tell them, you are the only people to blame because if they show their backbone, the roads in Kerala will be better. What people can do? Expose it. Somebody is pressurizing them. Let it be exposed to public. So and so person is asking this, but I don't want to do it. Nobody can do anything to them, but they're all afraid. I don't know what they're afraid of. Even such a statement, they will not accept. Maybe when you are sharing the benefits or reaping the benefits of some advantages, definitely you may not feel like standing erect. So the word Homo sapien doesn't apply now. Homo sapiens means it has come up from Homo erectus. Next is Homo sapien. Homo erectus means vertical backbone. That was the first part, Homo erectus. I think now we have to go back to Homo erectus.
How about the construction buildings? What about the quality?
See,
Government
the
buildings.
point is, I am seeing that the private buildings are constructed very well. Because I am offering consultancy to many of the contractors even now. After a gap of 15 years, till 2005, I was offering consultancy to many contractors in Kerala. But now, this year onwards, I have again started. So many of the contractors are my clients now. They come and meet me and I give the designs to them. And I am seeing that the private buildings are done intact. No problem. Why? There is a supervisor there appointed by the owner, or there is a contractor there appointed by the owner, and they do the construction exactly as per the design given. So if it can be done in a private building, why can't it be done in a public building? Public building, the machinery is government. I'm giving designs to government also. Moreover, to some of the government departments, I am the technical advisor. I have to sign the design and then only they can construct. But only signing part is with me. I never inspect the site because it is the engineer's part to do it. They construct it, and at the end, they'll come up with so many defects in the building. Then that is another thing. In the private building, I don't see any people are coming with any complaint. But in the government buildings, After 1 or 2 years, they again come back saying that this has happened there. What is the remedy? Why that remedy question comes? Because it was not done as per the specifications. Why it so happens? Everybody is involved. And I think the engineer is the person who should prevent it. Private engineers are doing it properly. Why not the government engineers? I think it's a time when we should rethink. Very rarely I have seen a government engineer sticking on to the stipulations, to the specifications. Whenever we go to site, I have never seen anybody with an engineering degree. At site, we will see only younger people. Why? Engineer sits in the office and let the others do the work so that engineer can comfortably enjoy. That's all. I'm telling the truth. In government construction, except CPWD construction, you will not see the engineer at site. Never. Even when you go for inspection or supervision, you will not see. Because as per their rule, a supervisor in the site is enough. A supervisor will be there. And the supervisor doesn't know anything about the quality of the material or the construction techniques. It will be mostly a person who has been promoted with an ITA and coming to the level of a supervisor. And in ITA, they are not studying any engineering except drawing. So by experience, they gain some superstition. Now, every week I am conducting a session to avoid this superstition. Every Sunday I am offering a session for the ITA holders and diploma holders explaining the concept of different engineering aspects, civil engineering, so that they at least know what is the reality instead of imagining things.
The real question is they are controlled by higher ups to
Definitely.
actually condone and encourage this practice or tolerate
Right.
this practice.
You are right, sir. That
If
is
you
true.
have
And politicians have already identified that engineers are those folks who will bend to any level. And luckily enough, I was at Trivandrum from 2000. I was at Trivandrum from 2005 to 2013. At that period, I was in many of the government boards. So everywhere such discussion comes, the minister will say something, the chief engineer will keep mum. This is what is happening everywhere.
If
So
you
I
try
think it is
to
high time
rectify
we should react.
any practice, if you try to rectify, you will be isolated. And the only option is resign and go.
That they are not ready.
Okay,
Even that is not required. They have to stand steady.
You will be transferred to some corner without any work.
Maybe. It is quite possible. But if you are ready to face that, the world can change.
So engineers by themselves cannot rectify all these mistakes. It should be a total input from all sides, including politicians and the political parties.
Correct, sir. This is a never-ending debate. Discussion will go on. So now it's time. Let us go for next item in the agenda. That's vote of thanks by Dr. Pradeep. So this any queries we can directly email to our Dr. Sri Madhavan Pillai and he will try to answer. Or in some other discussion we can continue this. Okay. Now, Dr. Pradeep, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. As we have seen, the discussion is continuing. That is the reason why Mahadevan Pillai sir is the right person for this discussion. Thank you very much, sir, for readily accepting this our invitation to be the resource person for today's session. Thank you very much. On behalf of the Institute of Engineers India, I thank you once again. I thank the senior members, our great gurus who are present here, all senior members of Institute of Engineers India, all student members and other invited people who have attended this session very patiently. Around 68 participants were there and who were from beginning till this end. So thank you all the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Okay, we will wind up. Okay, we will discuss. Thank you all participants. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.